Are we good to go? Okay. Hello, everyone. Another week's come round fast again, hasn't it? And we had the Outer Limits Conference Saturday and Sunday. For the most part, I think it was a success, thanks to our guest tonight, Chris Evers. Welcome, Chris. First time you've
Hi,
ever
Paul.
spoken about the conference, but we're going to do a little bit of that tonight.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic weekend. The vast amount of feedback that I've personally had is how much people enjoyed it. A lot of people were blown away, especially our foreign guests. And I'm not just talking about Peter Robbins, I'm talking about Kathy Tierney Cogliano, who flew in especially for the conference from North America, and also uh, Jean, who came in from France, especially to come and watch the event. And the thing about the OLM conferences is that it's a friendly atmosphere where egos are not allowed. The speakers, they all sit in the audience, and everybody's welcome. Just come along, make yourself comfortable. Just sit there, relax. If you want to talk to us, we'll talk to you. Not a problem.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of shined through all those conferences, hasn't it? There were a few problems with audio at beginning, and I think you ironed that out Sunday. But I don't think it were any fault of yours, Chris. It were just a glitching system at their end, and I'm not really sticking up for you
Yes, it
there.
was. Yeah. It was. I mean, we disconnected the laptop. It was still crackling. We disconnected the audio from the laptop, and it was still crackling. So it was definitely something that was a glitch in their system. But unfortunately, these venues, these halls that we hire, they cost a lot of money. When you expect the venue to work correctly or to the sound system to work correctly.
Well, it
But
kind of
you
has
are right. We
it
we
has a
we
knock
did
on you,
correct
doesn't
it.
it?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to say straight from the finish, straight from the off. The staff there were fantastic. They bent over backwards to try and solve the problem. Unfortunately, the staff that were there were not tech. They were not technical staff, as far as I'm aware. And they couldn't solve it. And in the end, we had to pull the audio out of the laptop. And when, for example, Malcolm Robinson was doing his talk on the Sorky Poltergeist, Malky nod, give me the nod. Can you connect it back up? So I went and connected it back up for him, so he could actually play the 5 minute of video from the BBC program that went out about it. Radio program that went out years and years ago. And as soon as he finished, pulled it back out again. And
Yeah, because
thankfully, the rest of the speakers on the Sunday, they didn't need audio, so it kind of went okay.
yeah, because the talk I did, I mean, it required audio on just about every slide, didn't it? And when you
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I think you're going to have to talk without microphone, or do the talk without the audio," well, my big mouth would have had to do it without the microphone, I'm afraid, because we needed that, and it, everything went anyway to plan. And I think you hit on some early on a few minutes ago when you spoke about the conference, and it were a good atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? That nice people, everybody mixed, and like you said, I mean, I treat everybody the way they treat me, and everybody were just coming up to table and meeting me, Les, Bob, Chris Turner. Everybody's from a 90-year-old to youngest person there. Everybody were happy, weren't they? And I think that's how it's got to be. Have you got plans for another one?
Yeah, unfortunately, it won't be at the Freedom Centre. I'm looking at a couple of venues in the Hull area, and of course, depending on cost. And I'm also considering maybe moving it out to the Leeds area. So, maybe somewhere like Pontefract again, or maybe even in Morley near Leeds, which better access for everybody. Trains go there, M1 rushes by, the M62 rushes by, easy to get to for people, and I'd love to keep it in Hull. And
Yeah.
if I can get the Middleton Hall, which is at Hull University, it holds 400 people. So, I'd have to push it to actually cover the costs. And, but I think it's recently been refurbished. I'm sure if Les was with us, you know, I know he's listening, but if he was talking, you know, I'm sure he could back this up in that he'll probably know how much money is being spent on the place refurbishing it. Something like 40 million they
Really.
spent on it. You know, absolutely beautiful place. It really is.
Well, you know, I mean, just staying with Les for a minute. I know we've got some problems with audio this week, and
yeah, I think I'm back in, Paul.
In the room now, are you, Les?
Yeah, I'm back in the room.
But not Les's fault. I'd love to say it was Les's fault, people, this week, but it weren't. There were a few gremlins in the system, but you know, I like to have a little bit of a laugh. So then, what I was going to say, but he's back with us, is I'm going to read the questions out as I see them going up that chat stream. But providing Les can speak to people, we'll wait till we've got 5 or 6 questions and we'll go with them. So that's all good. And we've got you now, Les. Lee Roscoe says so. Thanks for that, Lee. So yeah, please just fire some questions. Anybody who were at the conference at weekend, any observations as regards the speakers? Let's be hearing them. But overall, speakers I think were great. I mean, Sasha talked about her experience, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, Paul. Do you know what the great thing is about that? Sasha, I think I mentioned this briefly at the conference. Sasha has been pilloried because of her experience in North Wales with Steve Midgley and other members of family and friends, etc. But thank God Steve has come forward. Now, Steve was originally planning to come and speak at the conference. Basically, Sasha and Steve were going to sit down on the stage, microphones between them, and discuss what had gone on. And unfortunately, he couldn't make it because of a work commitment. And thank God he went on video, and Sasha brought that along. And despite the gremlins at the beginning of Sasha's presentation, you know, it's brilliant that somebody's come forward and give this account more credence and more power to Sasha's elbow. You know, getting this out into the public domain.
It was good looking at a picture. Granted, I mean, because that's all we can all do. We can't actually show them object, not when it's that up close and personal. But looking at a picture of the depiction of what they actually saw or what Sasha saw, and it was almost like a ball bearing, weren't it? You know what I mean? And it's interesting seeing it in perspective, and listening to the other guy talking as well. Like, you know, it was interesting. I mean, I did hear somebody say it were about her childhood experience. Well, she's in chat, I think. She'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it weren't about her childhood experience. It were an experience that she had as an adult. So it just shows how much attention some people paid to that, because it weren't a childhood experience. And
exactly.
I
think Sasha must have been. Sorry, Paul. I think Sasha must have been maybe late 20s or her early 30s when this occurred. You know, I mean, she had a child with her, so she's not going to be a child herself.
No, that's what I was thinking when I heard that. But the fact that her son saw the hand come through, you know, I mean, it's quite something, isn't it? You know what I mean? And them images will stay with him for the rest of his life. And really, really interesting sighting. And then, as I say, we've got Paul Ascoff. I mean, he always comes over as professional, doesn't he? You know, Paul?
Yeah. Paul's presentation was very slick. I really enjoyed watching what I actually caught of it, you know. And it's the way it got us to think outside of the box regarding, you know, what UFOs are, what they could be. Brilliant. Well done, Paul, if you're listening, watching.
Well, it will do, I suppose, at some point, you know, and you know, it were hitting on things. There's little bits of, I wouldn't say truth in what Paul says or what I say, but there's little bits that I find interesting in everybody's talk, and I think we can all learn from each other. And you know, when I was listening to him, and he what did he say? He said about the infrared and then not being able to pick them up. And I don't know, two slides in on my presentation, we've got Jamie, the witness, saying they can see this thing naked eyes, but we can't see it with an infrared camera, which it kind of, it doesn't make Paul's truth any more valid, or mine, or that lady's, but it adds more strength to what we're looking at. But just before we move on, Chris, let's just see whether Les has got any questions for us.
Yes. Okay, yes, we've got some questions in. And I've got to say welcome everybody to the stream tonight, which I didn't get to say at the big top of the show. So I've just got to welcome a few people in, Paul, if that's okay. Yeah, Rick Allen, Rebecca Illman, Ralph Winter, Paul Hadley, Lee Roscoe, welcome to the show, Lee. And Jane Louise Bowery, Blue Shift, Alison Buttle, Karen Saylor, and I apologise if I've missed anybody's name out, but welcome everybody to tonight's show. So yes, I have a few questions for Paul. I'm going to for Chris actually. Not Paul. Yeah, be one of you two. And let's have a look then. We'll start with. Okay, Lisa Rod. Chris is asking.
Apparently, Les, we've got an echo going off. Unless there's somebody called Echo in the room.
Okay. It should have gone now. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Audio gremlins, Chris, are following us all over, it seems.
Yeah,
Lisa Rod. It must be. It's got to be that. And Lisa Rod is asking, I'd like to ask Chris where we can watch the whole fair footage he showed on Saturday. Ta very much, she's saying.
Right, okay. That is a bit difficult. I actually found that completely by accident while I was trawling through YouTube. It was actually put up on YouTube in 2009 or 2010, and I was watching it because it shows somebody walking through our local fair, which I'm sure you know about that, Les, and Paul will know about that as well. And I just sat down and watched it, see if there's anybody on it that I knew, and of course that footage came on, and it was like, wow, a UFO sighting from whenever, which I'd never heard about before. But what I intend to do is I will copy that onto the friends, the official Friends of Outer Limits Facebook page. So if people want to view it, they can view it on there.
Okay. So do you know actual year that were taken or filmed?
Yeah, I think it was 2009, Paul.
All
to
right.
be honest with you.
I know you said 2009, but I didn't know whether that were actual year. I didn't know whether that's when it had been put on.
I'm not 100% certain. I think it could. I think it was 2009, and I think it might have been put on in 2010. Hull Fair occurs early in October, so it's towards the end of the year. And in all honesty, that is all I know about the footage. If anybody, when they see this, knows anything else or has seen anything similar to this in shape and movement, etc., because it is quite a fascinating piece of footage with what looks like some kind of mechanical device moving up and down at the bottom of whatever it is that is flying in the sky.
Interesting.
If anybody's seen anything like it, let us know.
Well, yeah, let us know what you find out, or if anybody wants to message us likewise, because 2009, as you know, it's not that far away from Wilsthorpe, and that's when all activity were happening in September 2009. What month is the fair?
October. It's usually the first full week in October.
October. Okay, great stuff. Okay, Les.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Deb Singleton is asking, kind of rewinding the clock here, what got Chris started in the field of UFOs?
My God, how long have we got? My interest began when I was 14 years of age in 1974. I've explained this before on the live stream, but I'll keep it very brief. I saw a strange series of lights. Okay, I saw a strange series of lights moving across Hull. At the time, I used to live in the States. It was a Bransholme estate, and I used to live there, and there was building a shopping centre, and back in those days, 1974, we didn't have laptops or computers. I had a stick and a push bike, and the stick was my gun to play war with. Out in early February, about 4:30 in the evening, playing war, where there's building this new shopping centre, and I was on top of a mud mound which had been put up there by the builders when they cleared all the surface debris and so on. And I'm sat on the top, crystal clear night, early February. I happened to look up into the sky and I saw a set of lights blinking on the opposite side of the town. It must have been about 10 miles away. It was a single dot of light, which then jumped forward and then it jumped halfway back again. So it kind of leapfrogged across itself all the way across the sky. It got to more or less where I was. And I looked up at the sky and jumped up and shouted to my mates, you know, look, guys, up in the sky, there's a UFO. I knew it was a UFO because I've been watching Jerry Anderson's TV show, you know, UFO, and keeping up with all the latest news, you know. And funny thing was, when I did that, it completely blinked out. Remember, the sky was clear, but 4:30 in the evening, and it should have continued in the same line, but it didn't. It just completely blinked out, you know, above me, and that was it. And that got me into the subject. So I started reading all the available publications, which were mostly American at the time, things from, you know, Donald Keyhoe, things about the Warminster thing, and that just fascinated me. And you know, I started reading ghost storybooks and, you know, real life ghost storybooks and things like that. So that interest in the paranormal has been there since then.
So I know you'll never know, none of us ever will, but it just blinked out when you started shouting. What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think that it blinked out because you started shouting, or do you think that was just coincidence?
Well,
what's your gut telling you?
It blinked out. I think it blinked out, Paul, because I started shouting. It heard what I was saying. So that to me shows some kind of intelligence behind what the thing was, or whatever was controlling the thing.
Yeah. So why show it? You know, just devil's advocate here. Why show itself in first place then, but where potentially not just Chris Evers could see it, but thousands of people?
Yeah, I mean, Hull at the time must have had a population of 220,000 people, you know,
Yeah.
and it was just, I don't know. I was in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, like many of the people who see werewolves, mate, they were in the right place at the right time, you know.
I would said right place, wrong time, to be honest with some of them, because you won't want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely stamped. It's actually scratched its image into these people's minds. They just can't get it out of them. But we'll see if Les has got any more questions.
Yes, we're back to the conference here, Chris. And I got to say, I attended on the Saturday at the conference, and my God, it was fantastic. Great caliber of speakers, and I've got to thank you very much, Chris, for that. I've got a question from, let's have a look, nickname. Right, as someone who was not there at the conference, any new and profound information from the speakers? Is there anything you want to put in there, Chris?
Not really, no. But the information that came across might have been new to some of the people who were actually there. You know, not necessarily brand new, startling information, but a lot of the people may have. I know some actually were attending a first-time conference, so it had been new and interesting for those kind of people. But as I said earlier, the feedback that I've had has been absolutely fantastic. 99.9% of the people have praised the speakers, the setup, and just how both days went. You know, and some have said it went far too quickly.
Yeah, it was a good event because I've got the attention span of a fly, and I ended up sat listening to most of the speakers. You know, well, I really did, and I don't normally, and it's not because they're not interesting. It's just me, and yeah, I don't think anybody said anything that were kind of profound. But who has in last God knows how many years? We can all come out with, you know, we hear speakers at various conferences talking all sorts of what I would call nonsense. With there's nothing, we haven't got much to back up anything that we're saying as researchers, as speakers, apart from anecdotal evidence and personal life experiences. But some people take it to a stage even further and start talking like the scientists. And to the layman, to me, that's probably what they sound like. But to the scientists, they sound stupid, because I've spoken to quite a few who've come to me. Not for information, but they're actually helping me with what we're doing at Bempton now, because I realise that I'm vastly inadequate in that department, you know?
Yeah. The word I mean, I suppose we could say that, you know, the footage that I showed at the end of my presentation, that I suppose could be classed as brand new information because it's only been on YouTube. I don't know who's seen it on YouTube, but it's a new sighting in the whole area that nobody was aware of. And as you know, Paul, I did speak a little bit about Rendlesham. And of course, about a year ago, we had 2 photographs come out, which one was classed as the policeman's photograph. Do you remember the green UFO that was said to be over his police car? Well, we talked about that and we discussed. Well, I actually thought it was a faked image, to be quite honest. And we discussed that and explained why I thought it could be a fake image. And also, about a week after that was released, about a year ago, we had what was called the poacher's footage, which was basically, it looked like a black and white image, which I think was taken during daylight hours because, you know, we could see the tree branches on the ground. Now, allegedly, it was a cold, crisp at night, you know, and you're not going to get reflections like that on a photograph from trees high above the person taking the photograph. Allegedly at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to get reflections of tree branches on the ground. Also, we don't know what camera was used for the poacher, but he's actually lit up the complete side of the trees with what I think was a flash, to be quite honest with you.
So
is
that now I've
yes,
got loads of echo
exactly.
here. I'm hearing the light was in front, weren't it? And you know, obviously we can see the shadow behind, so it had to have been a flash. I would have said that took them pictures. And well, likewise, I suppose the footage that I showed, I don't think anybody had seen. My friend, former police officer Dave Barnes, were with me, the one going across the sea from Filey Bay up to Flamborough, and then the lights earlier this year, which I filmed with Jason Davis, who did cover for Night People. So yeah, there was some footage that's not been shown before, I suppose, but it's not the smoking gun, is it? It's, you know, one day who can say, but I'm under no illusions that what we've got so far is not world beating proof. Let's put it that way.
Well, do we? I mean, people talk about disclosure, and you know, to me, it has happened. You know, December the 12th, 2017, the Pentagon have said, yes, there is something behind these UFOs. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's extraterrestrial. We don't know if it's man-made. We don't know if it's, you know, some people are now claiming it comes from beneath the oceans of the world. But if that's the case, well, what are these things made out of that are flying around? The gimbal, etc., you know, and the go faster footage. What are they made of? Because certainly that kind of material, or what looks like a solid material like that, if it's made under the sea, what is it made from? It's perplexing.
Well, it is, and I suppose these are questions that are just beyond us. It's not man-made, is it? The majority of what people have been talking about for past 100 years is not all man-made. Even the triangles which people talk about being a man-made object. If you look at John Hanson, and he's got probably the biggest archive in UK, if not world, on UFO material. And here's a little plug for John. He's just started his UFO museum, and we need to get a picture of that up at some point, to promote it, because he's got so much information that he's willing to share. But John's got police officer reports from 1909 of seeing huge black triangles. So, I mean, how far back do the people who want to say this is man-made technology, but we're just not showing it just yet, want to go? Do you know what I mean? Shall we do it before we invented wheel? It's crazy.
Well, as you know, Paul, we've got one case that goes back to Hull.
Yeah,
I think it's 1801. You know, which I think was brought out in a talk a couple of years ago at the conference. You know, and it's fascinating. It's strange light flying over the city and doing strange things. That's all we can say. You know,
that's
just
right.
a small clip in, you know, in the local newspaper at the time.
Mike Covel that found that article, weren't it? That bit of
That's correct. It was,
you know, brilliant, well unearthed kind of thing, isn't it? You know, just with the cryptids, I've found cryptid reports in archives up at Bridlington, and people had never expected to find them. A guy called Harwood Brealey were writing about barguests, huge dogs with glowing red eyes, 121 years ago. And he's right. So we're not breaking new ground here. We're just sort of treading in other people's footsteps and using slightly different language to talk about these things. That's all we're doing, you know. And we need to remember that there were people interested in these subjects long before us. You know, never forget. That's the thing, isn't it? You know. But so, unless you want to add hotels to that.
No, not really. See, you know, anything new that comes up obviously will go in the magazine. So, you know, if people want to subscribe, they'll find all the information in there, really.
Yeah, too right. Les, have we any more questions?
Yeah, we're getting a few questions in tonight, and which is always great. And thanks for all the questions, folks. And if you've got any more, please put them in caps, and Debbie will filter these through to me. Okay, Johnny Appleseed is asking, and intriguing little question, this one, Chris. Do you think any of the government agencies were at the conference?
Who knows? Who knows? There's certainly a man in white there, but, you know, it's men in black might be a different proposition altogether. You know, who knows? I mean, when I used to run the Hull UFO Society back in the mid-1990s, we had two people turn up in trench coats, clearly not from Hull, you know, and, you know, the way they talked was a completely different accent altogether. I mean, I'm from Hull. You can hear my accent. Broad East Yorkshire anyway. But these two gentlemen, you know, completely different accent altogether. They only showed up the once, and they never came after that, you know. So yeah, I mean, we know that they will visit conferences and mingling with the crowds and so on, you know, and they're more than welcome to come. I'm happy for them to come. In fact, if they want to come, I'll give them a free ticket. Not a problem.
Oh, I charge them double, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Paul.
No, just thinking about. We'll stay with one of the speakers for a moment, Mike Covel, because he opened your conference, really, didn't he? He began. Well, you did. You talked about the UFO picture and showed the Hull Fair footage, and then we had Mike on, didn't we? And first time I'd really listened to him. I know he's been on before, but like I said, I've just not sat there and listened to people. And I think he spoke really well. I think he put his subject and the sort of potted history of UFOs and the East Yorkshire stroke North Yorkshire on the map. He really sort of does his job, kind of thing, doesn't he? I mean, the first 10 minutes for me personally, I mean, if Mike listens to this, he'll probably think I'm having a go. I'm not. I wouldn't have spent 10 minutes talking about my achievements. I'd have just got on with talk. But when he got into it, I thought it was great. You know.
Yeah, he does know his stuff, and I do know he spends a lot of time, like yourself, Paul, in the archives, digging and searching for information. And I know he's kind of like spreading out from the whole East Yorkshire area now, and I know he's going up into North Yorkshire and West Yorkshire to look for things. And I know he's been to the North Lincolnshire area as well. You know, I just thought, you know, let's put something local to Hull. You know, I know you're local, Paul, but you're not exactly in Hull.
So I'm not a UNO, am I? I'm not a UNO, am I? I'm not a UNO.
No.
That's the only word I know from Hull.
But, you know, I just thought he'd be enjoyable, mate, to have on. And, you know, but he covered mass UK sightings, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Which I think he did very, very well, yeah.
I think he did it great, to be honest with you. Yeah, really articulate, well put together. Yeah, really good. And we ought to just touch on all speakers a little bit, really, because they all need that bit of exposure, because they did a great day's work for you, didn't they, basically?
Oh, do you know, I'm ever so grateful for every single one of the speakers. Yourself, Paul Ascoff, Mike Covel, you know, the Kinsella twins, Philip and Ronald, Sasha Christie. Not many people know, but the Friday night before the conference, Sasha wasn't going to turn up. She had problems at home, I think, and thankfully she made it. She got across to Hull from Liverpool under her own steam, and you know, nobody gets paid. You know, she did it herself because she wanted to be there. So Sasha was great. And of course, Peter Robbins, he was there on the Saturday as well, giving a talk about, if I remember correctly, was it UFO Ridicule on the Saturday afternoon? You know, he took it right back to 1947 to show how it started, who started it, excuse me, and, you know, brought it right up to modern days, modern times, and why they still do it. You know, if you can't refute the evidence, refute the witness, and that is
Yeah.
basically, you know, because they didn't have an answer. They didn't have an answer to what these UFOs were.
You know, talk on UFO ridicule is something I don't think we'd heard before. We know people always kind of touch on it and address it, don't they? Because I think that's one of the main reasons we've not got enough people, or as many people, coming forward with accounts. I mean, we are getting more. It is getting more acceptable, the subject, not just UFOs, everything across full spectrum of paranormal sort of studies, investigations, whatever you want to call it. People who wouldn't normally talk are becoming more open. I mean, somebody who were at conference today has contacted me and just connecting me with one of their neighbours who've had a sighting close to them. And it's just, people who wouldn't normally talk, you know, you're just getting more and more of it. And I think well, part of it's a trust, but part of it is that ridicule factor is lessening.
Yeah.
We're not getting as much of it. It's now acceptable, I think, with everybody, that the cats, you know, that when everybody used to say, oh, somebody's seen a big cat, and everybody would laugh their heads off, and I can't even imagine it. But it's accepted now by a lot of people, vast majority of people, that these things are living and breeding and surviving in UK countryside. Whereas 10 years ago, people had just laughed at you.
Well, just for your, I mean, for you know, your viewers' information, OLM, the magazine, has actually, I think we've had a big cat story in practically every issue for the last year.
Mm.
With, you know, various sightings around the country, mostly down south, but they're happening, you know. And again, the ridicule factor is dying off simply because, I think personally, because the Americans have come forward.
Yeah.
You know, something is behind UFOs. We don't know what it is, but they're coming forward. They're speaking about it. So much so, I think is it the American Congress are holding a debate next week about this very subject. You know, so it is happening. It is slowly happening. We've been on a trickle feed of information, slowly but surely, I think, for at least 10 years now.
Yeah, I would agree. But do you think there's something else on top of the ridicule factor? Because there's almost, I don't think it's a fear in everybody, but it's that all consuming awesomeness of what you've seen that kind of suppresses things as well. You know, when you've seen something that's just totally alien, and I don't mean alien as in Little Green Men, alien to everything you see and believe, and you've seen it, that kind of closes a person down as well. You know, I've spoke to people, Chris, and I'm sure you have, and I'm sure people listening to this today have, that are reluctant to talk about it for no other reason. They think they're going to kind of activate or revive something. Do you know what I mean? And that's frightening to some people. I spoke about a cryptid account, and although they told me about it and we'd gone into detail and we'd spoke for hours, when I spoke about it on here, they've never spoke to me since. I think not because I said it wrong, but I think I actually stirred some fears up, and it kind of brought it all back again. And that's something me as a researcher and other people have to be wary of and mindful of as well. You know, not that you're going to revive it, but the person who's had the trauma, it sometimes just sort of lets them relive it a little bit, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying and where you're coming from with that. I just want to kind of maybe expand on that just a little bit, in that as kids, you know, we go to school, we're taught our ABC, our mathematics and everything else. We're taught to think in a particular way. But that is why Paul Ascoff's talk was so valuable in getting us to think beyond that box, outside the box. You know, look at it from this point of view instead of, you know, thinking from that point of view. And again, you know, I think people respected that from him on Saturday. You know, brilliant talk.
Yeah, interesting guy. But that's what I'm saying, Chris. I think we can take little pieces from everybody's talks, but not just talks, people in audience, because they have as much to say as us. They're only there because they're looking for answers to their own puzzles. Do you know what I mean? And
well, let's be honest, Paul. We're nothing special.
No,
we're just like the people who sit in the audience and take the information in that we're giving out. You know, but again, as we've discussed before, you know, on the telephone and so on, when we've met up at Bempton, you know, we're just an investigator trying to inform people about what is going on.
It's true.
Yes, if we could bring an answer to the subject, we would do, you know, but until then, until somebody comes up with the full, you know, A to Z of what is going on, we'll just provide what we can when we can.
Yeah, that's correct. And let's just move to another, before we get to some more questions, because I'm sure there's a few coming. Let's just talk about Kinsella's, and you gave them some awards.
Dear. Yeah. You was at Pontefract, weren't you, Paul? You did a talk there. And you remember what I did with Philip Mantle and Malcolm Robinson, where they each got an award? Well, I asked Malcolm all about Philip Mantle, and I asked Philip Mantle all about Malcolm, and I did exactly the same with the Kinsella twins. That's how I knew about, you know, dedicated follower of fashion, you know, swapping his brother's clothes when he'd ripped something. So he could, because they obviously being twins, they each wore the same or similar items. So that's why I got that information. And also moving on to, you know, he loves skateboarding, and he progressed to, you know, to shopping trolleys. You know, the reason I put that in with the shopping trolleys is because Ronnie pushed Phil down a hill. And Phil actually came out of the shopping trolley, grazed all his knees, etc. And you know, I just thought it was something funny about them, and it just shows the kind of people that they are. But Ronnie and Phil, in my opinion, are two of the best and most respected investigators in the country in their particular fields. You know, I mean, like yourself, Paul, they put the hours in, they put the time in, and they get out there and they share the information. And thankfully, they share it for our Limits magazine as well on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, I'm hoping people in chat, or most of them, know Ron and Phil Kinsella, because they're characters. And, you know, I think obviously they're going to be around for a long time, but long after they've gone, you know, people will remember them too, because they bring nothing but goodness to subject, really, because they speak from heart. And honestly, people, they're not paying me to say this; it's the truth. And they're just good blokes. You know, really nice to be around, and so generous with the time and with their information, like you said, because a lot of people just want to keep it. They just want, oh, it's my information, I'm not going to tell you anything about that. And they're just like moles. They just go to ground. You find a bit of info and they don't say nothing. But I think that we should all be sharing it. So yeah, they got their award. They were a bit emotional, weren't they?
Oh yes, none of Ronnie has never won an award.
They said they never won.
You know, I hope I'm not going to embarrass him now, but you know, it's sometimes because Phil seems to get all the, I don't know, maybe the praise and maybe the accolades, etc. You know, that's why I did Ronnie first with the award. You know, just to put, because well, Ronnie just deserved it. You know, he's been a regular contributor to the mag, and he's provided artwork for the covers, you know, and lots of other different things that people don't see and don't know about. You know, and Phil has done the same with his articles. But I knew that Philip and myself, actually, we love the old Carry On movies. You know, Sid James, Kenneth Williams, Atty Jakes, etc., which is why I put the bit in from Kenneth Williams, you know, infamy. And when he saw that, he just said he bust out laughing.
Yeah, the funny, aren't they?
It's part of my welcome to people.
Yeah.
All part of the welcome, Paul, you know.
Yeah, too right. And I don't know what that echo is. I keep hearing myself a little bit there, but it's gone now. I know Les will have some questions, but I'll just, while it's in my mind, because Les might want to answer this as well. I did see that somebody had written, how far are we with Wolflands and how's Wolflands coming along? Well, from my own point of view, we've been working on Wolflands today. We were working on it yesterday. Les is working on it every day, every single day, to be honest with you. He's putting the hours in on this hook, line and sinker. He's really sort of heavily involved in it. And I'm still doing sketches. I'm still writing bits of narration for it. So how far is it coming on? And should we have finished it by now? Yeah, we should have done if we wanted to knock out some kind of bog standard documentary. And we hope people that we've gone a little bit over and above and made something that's going to be entertaining from start to finish, and not just two people sat in a cafe talking about a sighting and seeing a picture of what they perceive they've seen. So I don't know what your views are on how far we are we, Les.
Yes, I can only concur with you, Paul, on that one. That we'll put a lot of hours in this, and I've just got to ask you, did you get my overtime slip that I put in?
I didn't know. I lost it somehow.
Right, I'll have to resend that one. No, seriously, I've got to thank Lee Roscoe tonight, who sent in a super chat. Thank you, Lee, a £10 super chat. And it's going towards the making of Wolflands, a film. So thank you very much, Lee, on that one. I'll move on to some questions if you're ready.
Sec, Les, just for a second, because I don't think people realise as well, all people that have helped us with Wolflands, and we've had hell of a lot of help. I mean, not just things like the super chat, but Chris Wright from Scarborough has given us loads of his time on his days off, and came and helped us with filming, finding prime locations in the forests, which are sort of safe and discreet to film in. So we've had a lot of help. Mally Dodgson, we've had lots and lots of help. My daughter Jess and her husband Nick, Mick Park, the music. We've been very lucky. We're not doing this just two people. There's a lot of people helping us with this, and I'm very grateful. And there'll be some names I've missed out, so apologies. So go on, Les. Questions.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Just before you do that, Les, sorry to interrupt. I'm in the same situation, Paul, with the conference. My brother, Owen Evers, he helped, put a few of the videos together with me, or he did them himself. And also my son, Kevin, who turned up on the Sunday and helped with one or two things as well. It's all right seeing Chris Evers in Outer Limits Magazine conference. Yeah, it is. But I don't do it alone, just like you two guys. So thank you to them.
It's true.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Alison Buttle is asking, hey, Chris. I've got to say how Alison would say it.
I was just wondering that.
Hey, Chris. Yeah. Brilliant day Saturday. Because of history in paintings, UFOs paintings on walls, tells me they've been around for thousands of years. Do you think they put us on this earth?
That's the $6 million question, really, isn't it, that one? Who knows? Who knows? I don't have a specific answer for that, but I tend to think we are a direct product of the planet. I don't think we've been seeded onto this planet. That's just my own personal opinion. If it differs from what other people think, absolutely fine. I don't have an argument with it. But in reality, none of us really know. It's all complete and utter speculation.
Yeah, it is. And if you look at the way we act towards the rock art, the old artwork on walls and the Egyptian art, and when we're looking at these things that people depict, interpret as UFOs or some kind of celestial being, it seems like we worshipped it regardless. And I'm not saying that they've put us here, but whatever it was seemed superior even then to us. We sort of fell to our knees and worshipped it, and we even back then people saw the importance of this strangeness that they were viewing.
Yeah, look at the Dogon people. They had they worshipped, I'll call it a creature or a god for want of a better word, that I think it had a man upper half and a fish bottom half, and that was what, thousands of years ago. And the Australian Aboriginals, they have their own, types of artwork, which you've just said have been around thousands of years, Paul. Go to South America, we have the same there. Mexico, we have the same there. Even I think in North America, the Indian tribes there, or the Native Americans, they have something similar. They have stories of the sky folk who come in. So yes, we have been visited I think for millennia, but again, I don't think that they actually put us on the planet. I think we're a natural product of this planet.
Okay. All right then. Here's one, and we know it's all speculation, but we're a natural product of this planet, as you're saying. Do you think then that we were the prime species to interact with and enhance? Because we seem to possess, and don't get me wrong, we know better than the animals, but not way most of us act, or a lot of us act, we're worse. But what I'm saying is we've got that. Some of us have compassion, some of us have hatred, and we can see that in animal kingdom, but there's something that sets us apart from the animal kingdom. Do you think they've had a hand in that?
That's an interesting thought, Paul. It's clearly we're a dominant species on the planet, with the fact we can create homes, we can build machines to do work for us, and all such things like that. But we're not the dominant species on the planet. If they were going to interact with us, or is it simply because we have hands we can use as tools to make things? Whereas, for example, creatures, I mean, I'm not saying a whale is a whale is quite intelligent actually, and dolphins are extremely intelligent. Did they not interact with dolphins because they're in water? And they couldn't create and develop things like we could, or is it just a natural thing that we do? Why did man why did he walk over the first hill in front of him? It's because he wanted to know what was on the other side. And we as a species are like that. We want to know what's on the moon, what's on Mars, what's out there, and that's why they've just sent that brand new telescope out into space, so they can actually look back and discover if more planets are out there other than the 5,000 or so that we already know exist around other suns. So yeah, could have done, don't know really.
Or are we just overestimating our importance? Do you know what I mean?
I think that's quite probable, to be honest.
You said before, they might be no more interested in us than a blade of grass. I mean, and it's just the fact that we do have that awareness, and a blade of grass hasn't. It just when somebody's trod on it, he's crushed it. We actually can look up and think, "What's that?" Anyway, we'll look towards Les for some guidance with a question.
Okay, we've got Rick Allen. Is asking, does Chris believe that there's a connection between UFOs and cryptids?
And cryptids? I think that's quite likely, actually. The reason I say that is me and Paul, we were talking with Derek Tyler and Deborah Jane East, Paul, if you remember, quite a number of years ago now. You was being interviewed by them in the States, and I rang up, and we actually discussed UFO sightings and the fact that unknown creatures are quite often seen in the same area. So I do actually think they are related, definitely.
Yeah, well, if you'd have listened, sounds like I'm being cruel to you here. If you'd have listened, when I spoke on Saturday, I covered a sighting from November the 14th, 2019, with Lee Haywood, where we saw a huge glowing sphere in the field that we were in. We both saw it. I mean, we put an image up, and I know you couldn't because you were all over the place while people were doing talks for us. But what I didn't know, but I found out afterwards, is after COVID lockdown and we were allowed to take a little bit of exercise, myself and Bob Brown, the RSPB was still closed. It was still taped off. But what I did, I I phoned one at farmers I know and asked if we could park on his land, and we walked over to the cliff tops, took a golfing trolley with all his gear. It was more of a, everybody felt it, didn't they? We can just go out, we can just do what we want after being sort of confined. And we sat there, and then a guy, we've time to talk about this, haven't we, Les, for 2 minutes? A guy walked down with a dog, a gun dog, a pointer dog, and he asked us if we were looking at seabirds, and we told him, we just sort of nodded and said we was, and then he walked off towards Flamborough. I'll keep it quick, I'll hurry up because it's for you, this, Chris. But 45 minutes, an hour later, he walks back and it's just about dark. So he can see cameras set up, and he realises we're not looking at seabirds. And we eventually told him we were trying to film these lights over at sea that keep presenting, you know, once or twice a year, once every 2 years. Nobody knows really. And just as he's about to leave, Bob asks him if he's seen any unusual animals, and use the standard line that we give to people because it's accepted, a big cat's been seen, which isn't a lie. He said no, told his dog to sit down, then proceeded to tell us about a cryptid sighting that he had the year before, because this is 2020 when we're talking. But what were amazing was the date that he saw it, because he could date it. He says it was the full moon of November 2019. That was 12th. So it was 2 days before me, and Lee Hayward saw the sphere of light on the cliff tops. Yeah. Now, to ask me, do I then think that the cryptid is inside the sphere of light and they're somehow traveling together? No, I don't. Me personally, I don't. I think there's a connection, but I think it's something within the geography of the land. I think something's enabling these paranormal events to manifest. I mean, I don't expect everybody to agree with me, and I'm not, quite honestly, I'm not bothered if you do or you don't, because these are only my opinions. But I don't think cryptids are traveling in UFOs any more than I think, I don't know, other things of a paranormal nature that are happening together or in close proximity are actually linked. It's some kind of symbiotic relationship with the land, in my opinion, that all of this has. But,
well, you've always said, Paul, location is key.
Yeah.
So you could well be right. You know, what I'm basically saying is that when you get UFO reports, you quite often do get cryptid reports going on in the same area. Now, yeah. I've got a question for you, actually. As you know, I'm reading TP4,
yeah,
which I've had for a while, and it's going to be reviewed in this next issue of the magazine. But I've come across a part in there where you were shot at.
Yeah.
What the hell was going on? Did you get to the bottom? Did you find anything?
I didn't. Obviously, I rang police. Eventually, police did come out and see me. After getting shot at, you'd think they'd be out straight away. So the police officer that occasionally goes onto cliff tops with me, we do these late all-nighters. We're going to say late night ones, but they turn into all-nighters, and we're up on those cliff tops. He's interested in what's happening. He's interested also in the missing people part of it as well. And this is the guy that had the sighting of when he went to Speeton, and he turned round and he had the sighting of this huge, almost figure of eight red object. He said it looked like a figure of eight with a slightly darker band round the middle, pulling it in. And it intrigued him. Well, he'd never been in the daylight, never been to area in daylight. And he asked me to get some pictures, daylight pictures for him. So on this particular day, I went with my little dog, took the pictures he wanted to just let him lay at land, you know, because, I mean, he weren't that far from this object when he saw it. And when it switched off, he went running towards it and ran all the way back to the RSPB centre and encountered nothing. I think he said he stopped at RAF base momentarily, but it's totally puzzled him. But anyway, as I'm walking back, so I leave the cliff tops and I go down a place what's called Hoddycows Lane. So if you want to look at it on maps, anybody, and there's no traffic on it. It's got a big gate on it that's locked. It's only for tractors and things, and there's a gate for people walking. There's some people bailing about half a mile away, and there's a forklift truck and a tractor with a trailer. They're putting bales on it, but it's relatively flat. I've got hedgerows either side of me, and I did see deer. So what I'm thinking is somebody's took a stray shot at a deer, but even then, to come from farm, it's on an hill. It's on a bit of a mound, and whatever it was that went past me, it went straight past my chest and hit the undergrowth. But the velocity in it, honestly, I think I said before, my dad used to be in a rifle club. So as a little boy, you probably couldn't do it now, but I used to go. You know, you'd watch them and they'd be on these stands shooting. They're only 2.2s. but you can hear the velocity of the bullet, and this one more, and it hit the undergrowth, and behind it there's all blackberries and brambles, and there's a fence about 3 foot high that's got that 6 inch by 4 inch square fencing. Because I thought, oh, I'm going to go back and try and find this, but it's impossible. You know, whatever it was. So yeah, I was shot at, dropped to my knees, sort of scurried about a bit, rang the police. The police said, I explained what had just happened. I didn't say it's been done with intent. I said, it could be stray. Somebody shot at a rabbit or a deer. Police officer said, am I safe now? All this will be logged. Not that it's of any great consequence. I'm sat here now, but if anybody wants to find me out, go for it. So what I'm saying is, am I safe now? So I said, well, how do I know? Do you know what I mean? And so he said, put the phone down and ring 101. And you can't believe it, can you? You just can't believe it. That I'm not reporting somebody's dog fouling. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I did that, and I rang 101, and I'm waiting for a call and a reply, and I got none. So I went home, and then I did get a reply after waiting for a bit, but eventually we got nowhere, and I went home and pursued it that way. I put a complaint in. Which went nowhere, but yeah, got shot at. What does it mean? Could it have been a stray bullet at a deer or a rabbit? Of course it could.
So did it come from?
It came from the sea. It came from the cliffs, definitely, and cut straight across me.
Inland.
Inland.
So it wasn't one of the guys who were doing the bailing or anything like that.
The lads who were doing the bailing were up the top near Speeton. I've gone right down near Bempton then. But I'm looking at it as though it's a stray bullet, but I couldn't see anybody with a gun. I heard no projectile. I heard the sort of velocity as it passed, but I didn't hear a gunshot. That's another thing. I never heard a gunshot, and yeah, that's about what it is. We'll never know, will we? And
no.
Whatever it was, if it had hit me, I wouldn't be sat here now anyway. But
no, absolutely not.
And Les would be smiling, I think.
Sorry about bringing that up, Paul. But
no worries. It's all good. Right, Les, where do you want to go with this? Have you got a question for us?
Yes. Well, just before we go to a question, we've just got a little ad to run for the OLM Conference in Blackpool, and we are going to run with that.
Join the stellar lineup of renowned speakers and TV personalities at the Awakening Expo, June 24th to 26th, 2022, Blackpool, UK, featuring Eric von Däniken, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, Andrew Collins, Steve Mera, Billy Carson, Dr. Teresa Bullard-Wyke, Johnny Enoch, Paul Sinclair, Maria Wheatley, Andrew Goff, Barry Fitzgerald, Hugh Newman, and Richard Doty. Immerse yourself in 3 days of mind-blowing presentations, Q&As, panels, meet your favorite speakers, and much, much more at the Awakening Expo, June 24th to 26th, 2022, Blackpool, UK. Get your tickets now at awakeningufo.com.
A year ago.
Okay, we are back, guys, with you, and I'm just going to kick off with a question from Al. Chris, will you be doing an article for the OLM magazine on the poacher's picture and the Polaroid analysis?
That actually appeared in obviously the conference conference should have happened 2 years ago, and as soon as those images came out, the Polaroid images, etc., that these people were supposed to have taken, that was in the magazine around about May-June time last year. Now people can purchase, a single copy if they want one. It's only £3.90. But what I might do, just for the benefit of everybody, is put something on the official Friends site. Just copy it out the magazine, put the pictures on, and I'll put the write-up on that. So if people, they don't have to purchase it, they can go and read it all on there.
Okay. So if he's not got any questions, I mean, what highlights at weekend for you then, Chris?
Personally speaking, was I enjoyed presenting the awards for the reactions that they got. You know, I mean, the amount of people that cheered and clapped when both Ronnie and Phil got one, and also Peter as well. You know, I really enjoyed doing that. And from the items that I actually had enough time to watch, yourself, of course, and of course Paul Ascoff's presentation, which I thought was very, very enjoyable. But most importantly, I think Colin Saunders. Excuse me. I think Colin Saunders was fantastic. I first heard Colin speaking about his encounter in the late 1990s down at, in Derby at Omar Fowler's UFO group. Travelled all the way from Hull to go there and just listen, basically. And I always presented that now, and it just so convincing. The evidence that he's got is so convincing. You know, I think a lot of people enjoyed Colin, and a lot of people were surprised that they'd never heard of it before.
Yeah,
that is what I do at the conferences, Paul. I try and get interesting items in, be informed, and get new people in if you have to.
Yeah, I spoke to him before he went on, because I'd never met the guy, and he said he was very nervous. Well, he didn't come across nervous. He come across as very professional. And yeah, I think for me personally, that was my favourite talk of the whole conference. And like you said, he brought his evidence to the table and laid it out in a professional way. He didn't try and push it down anybody's throat as it's the holy grail of truth, but it's my truth. And if anybody who's not heard of the man and what he saw, I think it was 1999, this triangle sighting, look him up and sort of, I don't know, do a bit of in-depth research, because he's as good as anybody out there when it comes to his particular subject. Let's put it that way. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, he lives in the Leicester area, and cut a long story short, he and his family were travelling home one evening when this FT actually was above their car while they're travelling on the road. You know, and I'll let people look up the rest of it, because it is such a fascinating and interesting case.
Yeah, can you imagine that, the magnitude of having something like that? You know, I mean, we had somebody in audience at OLM who you know and I know, Nick Mellors.
Yeah.
And Nick's had his own black triangle sighting, which is incredible. I'm not sure. I think that was 1998, weren't it?
Yeah.
And you probably covered that for UFO Society back then, did you?
Yes, I certainly did. Yeah. The just one thing about Colin's sighting, you know how big the screen was at the conference centre.
Yeah.
Well, at one point while he was setting his slides up, he put them up on the screen, and do you know the one where he had like 4 lights across the middle and 1 underneath? Well, he actually said the one which was top left and the one which was bottom right were actually the size of the object. Now, if people were there on the Sunday when he gave that talk, they would have seen how big this craft was. Now, Nick's sighting was one that I investigated when I was running the Hull UFO Society, and I went along to interview him and his then partner, and you know, unfortunately, when I walked away from the subject back in the early 2000s, I lost all his details and all his sightings, but all his sighting reports, sorry. But I have found an article online which I've sent over to him, which he's extremely pleased that I've done that, and it covers all his sighting. But you know, that was about a year ago when I found that, and I can't remember what it says, so I apologise.
No, it's such an interesting one. I wrote about it in Truth Proof 4. You know, you'll get to that eventually in book, Chris. But I mean, he followed this thing for miles in his car.
Yeah.
Him and his then partner. You know, and talked about the enormousness of this object. And I'm still, it still blows me away the amount of triangle sightings that people were seeing between 94 and 98.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of the peak of them. But then I jumped back to for the people that say, well, they're all man-made and it's our technology, we're still not seeing it. Why aren't we using it to settle conflict, for want of a better word now? Why, if we've had these things, as John Hanson's police reports show from 109, over 100 years ago, why aren't we seeing them? There were nothing like that. No man could not have made that kind of technology, not the men we know, unless it's somebody from the future who did it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, why would a government create such a craft and then fly it over populated areas if it was a secret object?
Good point. Absolutely good. You know, I can remember the date. It was December 2014. There was a huge boomerang shaped, I think, it made Scarborough Evening News. People saw it on Valley Bridge at Scarborough. And you kind of receive a trickle of reports. It takes years, sometimes 10 years, 20 years. But I received a report from some farmers in Hummonby. And they're quite well known. That they've got a shop in Hummonby as well. And I think it was the son of the farmhouse, the people in the farmhouse, and it was the son and his son and mum driving home after a school event, and they could see this thing. And he rang his dad and said, "It's going over towards our farm at Hummonby. Go outside and watch it." And Dad went outside and looked up, and he can see this thing, and it's just too late. And it's this big boomerang's going into the distance. This graphite coloured thing. How do I know it was graphite? We'll stay with this story for 2 minutes and then you'll find out. But it had all lights all around it, all small, like sparkling lights. It went towards a wind turbine at a neighbouring farm. The wind turbine stopped. The farmer noted it and saw the object. Another farmer further on, I gathered all this information, had a child sit-on toy train that, this is weird, that were for sale. They'd got it for sale on eBay. It didn't work. As this thing passed over, because they're all messaging each other, as this thing passed over, all the lights and little gadgets on the train, because it did all sorts of things, started working. I don't mean it started running around the living room, but things started working as this thing passed over. How's that work? I don't know how the mechanics of that work. So anyway, the farmer, the son, gets home with his son into the farmhouse discussing it. "Did you see it, Dad?" He said, "Well, no, not really. I didn't. I just saw this huge thing going into the distance." Later that night, they go out for a cigarette. Middle of nowhere, this farm. I'd say it name, but it's not fair. I've named them in book because they know. You know, I did ask permission, but I'm not going to do it on air. So they go out for a cigarette. Crisp cold night. I think it's December 14th. And they look up and it's there. Literally a couple of 100 foot above them. And it's shaped like a huge boomerang. It's totally silent. It's the colour of graphite grey colour. There isn't a noise coming from it. There's no hum. There's no electrical discharge. There's nothing. And they're looking at this thing just sat static above the farmhouse. It's bigger than the farmhouse. It's absolutely monstrous. And so either these people are lying, all the other farmers, the other two farms have concocted a story, or we're attaching some truth to it. And the people are totally independent who saw it on Valley Bridge, that this thing were moving, and it was seen by other people in Scarborough, but an incredible sighting. All right, Chris, it's not a triangle shape, boomerang shape, but absolutely incredible.
That's actually quite interesting because Darren Cooper in Southampton, he saw something that was boomerang shaped, didn't he? If you, I don't know if you're familiar with his sighting. I'm not
familiar with his sighting, but I know he talks about a sighting. I'll have to have a look. Do you know what year it was?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it might be worthwhile contacting him and just to see if dates are similar or within a couple of days of each other, you know.
But well, then again, I'm pretty sure it was December 14th.
Right. Okay. I can't remember what his date was, but thinking about what you've just said as well about what I think could possibly be some kind of electromagnetic interference with wind turbines, or you know, or for example, the train working that you mentioned. We've had reports, as you well know, Paul, in the past, of cars being affected.
Yeah.
You know, when these things fly over them. I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, but Cash Landrum, Didn't they get some kind of effect?
Yeah.
Betty and Barney Hill, didn't they get some kind of effect? You know, so whatever it is, this is why I am kind of still, and forgive me, folks, I'm kind of still more of a nuts and bolts believer than, you know, some kind of portal thing coming through from somewhere else. But that's only my belief. Don't mean it's right. Don't mean it's wrong.
Well, there's no wrong with that, Chris, at all, is there? I mean, 2009 September, police officer driving from Barmston towards Fraysthorpe, which is on outskirts of Bridlington, for anybody that doesn't know. He's in his patrol car, and as he's driving just towards Fraysthorpe, there's a car coming in opposite direction that slows down. Its lights dim. He slows down to see what's the problem, and a triangular object lifts from hedgerow at other side and flies out to sea. I've spoken to the police officer. Do you know what I mean? I don't mean I've spoken on phone or got some kind of bit of paperwork. I've spoken to him several times face to face, and he's adamant that this is what he saw. But that's at the height of all the weirdness. But that had some effect on mechanics of that car, you know. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. There's something that it's affecting electrical components on cars, and I'd like to say, is it just the new cars? We all sort of new technology, but it can't have been if it affected the car at Barney and Betty Hill, because we're going back to 1960s, aren't we?
Yes, yeah. I think it was 61 that occurred.
What is?
So you maybe 60 or 61.
I weren't born.
I'm not saying anything. Oh dear. But yeah, you know, I mean, going back to the conference again, you know, and on the Sunday, Colin Saunders, as I say, he was up first on the Sundays, you know, Paul. And I've actually completely forgotten now who came up after him. Can you remember yourself?
Oh God, no. Let's have a think.
Come on, Les. So good sitting there smiling. We can see you.
Les didn't come on the Sunday, so I can't remember. But
anyway, the Kinsellas did their presentation in the afternoon.
That's correct.
And I think they were next. And their presentation, I have actually heard it before. You know, most of it before anyway. But they have such a love for the subject. You know, but I obviously with the award being given to him, you know, to Phil especially, who says he's you know, he's a medium. I keep telling him he didn't see that coming, did he? So, you know.
No, he didn't know. What I like about Phil and Ron, and they mean it, and I mean this with loads of respect, because I think they're great. But he'll go, you know, this happened to us when we were children, and we don't lie, and they mean it, because he's not trying to push it down anybody's throat. And as I say, if you've not spoke to him, if you've not met him or listened to him on a podcast, have a listen. They're as genuine as they come. So we don't want to miss anybody out, you know, Chris, who were on the conference. I mean, we've done Sasha, we've done Paul Ascoff, and I did. Let's have a look. Sasha, Colin Saunders, Mike Covel, Chris Evers, Peter Robbins. We've not talked about Peter really, have we? Talked about UFO ridicule, but the fact that he came over from the States, and
well, Peter was up first on the Sunday, wasn't he? Do you remember? He originally he wasn't going to do anything about a gentleman who shall remain unnamed, but I'm sure everybody who's watching or listening will know exactly who we're talking about. And if you remember, on the award that he was given, I pointed it out that he'd actually got the award for, you know, 40 plus years of dedication to ufology and for seeking the truth, which is why he walked away from a 30 plus year friendship. You know, once he realized that friendship was based on lies, basically, you know. But again, that's exactly why Ron and Phil got their awards for being dedicated to truth. Everybody that was in that hall that morning, you know, giving talks, or on the Saturday giving talks, as far as I'm concerned, are all dedicated to finding the truth. Now, Peter got up, and as I said, he didn't really want to do a talk about that individual. But I said to him, look, Peter, people are going to expect you to say something. If they don't, you know, get you individually in the conference center, you know, which is likely going to happen, it's best to get up and just say something, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. He presented about a 25-minute discussion on how we met that person, how we discovered that person was, you know, lying, and why he broke up with that person. So that was the first one up, you know. And then I think we had Colin after that, if I remember correctly. And then, you know, then we had the Kinsellas doing their stuff again. And then we had Malcolm Robinson. Good old Malky. He's often the butt of my jokes, and I'm really, really, really glad, you know, that he puts up with my sense of humour, to be quite honest with you. And you know, he presented not a story, but facts about the Sorky poltergeist, which was it happened to a family that had travelled to Scotland to live in Scotland from Ireland, and there's a young lady involved with this who attracted this poltergeist, and he told us a story about what she'd gone through, how it actually affected her and the family. But the interesting thing is, she eventually grew up and moved away. So this poltergeist was not just affecting her, it was actually affecting the house next door. And when she moved away, it was still affecting the same property. So it must have been something. Who knows where they come from and why they come, you know, and do this. But Malky discussed all that, took us right through everything, give us, you know, 5 minutes of a radio broadcast that was done on the BBC, as I mentioned earlier. I'm thinking about the early 1960s. I know the hell he'd found that. I've got absolutely no clue whatsoever, you know. But what a fantastic presentation. And just like you, Paul, you can see the love that Malcolm has for the subject by how he presents it.
Yeah, he really puts his heart and soul into it, and like you said, that can be seen. What I found interesting, and I don't know if anybody listening to this now, because it's always great to hear other people's views and opinions on these things, and that's what I like about this live chat, is that, like you said, the poltergeist appeared to be focused on this young girl, but I don't necessarily think. I think it's probably been there many years, that whatever this phenomena is, the poltergeist phenomena is, it just needed the right ingredients to activate it, and it somehow it connected with that young girl, because like Malk said, when she left, the activity continued to a certain degree, and you can bet your bottom dollar that if the right ingredients are presented again, and it might be just, I don't know, 1 in 1,000, and it might never, that it would reactivate it. You know, I think to the experiences that I had living in Old Dennerby, and you think to yourself, what I just unlucky to be living in that house, or a house that were built on that piece of land that these things happened, you know. And I've been back, you know, we'll get back to Malcolm in a minute, but I've been back to the house and sort of knocked on the door, and I've not said anything about it, but I've said, oh, I used to live here and things, and you're kind of hoping, but nobody said a word. Do you know what I mean? But you just wonder, don't you? You wonder, and that property, is it still active today? You know, that's something I ought to have asked Malk. I don't know if anybody did in audience.
Well, the funny thing is, you know, talking about things still going on in that same property in Sorky today, a lot of people have said in the past, well, some people have said in the past who've been into this kind of subject, parapsychology and all that, that they believe that an essence can be left in the walls of the property, you know, and that this can come out in some way, shape or form and affect people. Who knows? It could be something to do with that, Paul.
Yeah. Well, I'm not understanding it. I'm understanding what you're saying, but I'm not understanding how the essence of some kind of excited energy or memories could be left in walls. I can understand that, because we talk about the wailing walls of York that people say that they've heard and things like that. It's almost like a tracing back through time. But this has intent. Whatever this was that were interacting with that family in Scotland had intent. There was an awareness, there was an intelligence to what it was doing. Yeah. So can something that can just impregnate its essence into the fabric of a building also have intelligence then?
Who knows? I mean, if we had the answer to that, Paul, we wouldn't be sat here now discussing it, would we? We'd have an answer. It'd be out there in the public domain, and you know, and it'd be one less subject to put in the mag or in one of your books, mate.
Yeah, good point. Yep. So I think we'll ask Mr. Drake if there's any more questions.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Sinclair, for asking me if I've got any questions. So, yes, I have, but just before I get to the questions, I've just seen Ronald Kinsella is in the chat tonight, so I've got to welcome Ronnie to the stream. Tino's in the stream tonight. Anders Mayhire, or Mayhire, well, I don't know what the pronunciation is there. Sebastian Moran and Space Cadet Lottie for some of the names I didn't mention earlier. So, getting on with the question, I'm just going to jump a little bit forward in the questions. So, forgive me, Deborah, because I always get a slapping from Debbie if I get them out of order. But it's praise for you, actually, about the conference, Chris, and it's from V.E. McGrinnan.
Yeah.
And, not many conferences give a democratic community platform for experiences. I think you're great. You're a great asset, Chris. Thank you, and my deep respect, Chris.
Well, thank you. That's very, very kind of you. We in 2018 we did our second conference, and we had an Australian. Well, she's actually British, but she lives in Australia. We had Mary Rodwell over, and we did a 2-day, a two-parter then. And but the Sunday was just aimed at people who had contact, who had an experience of some kind, and we just all sat around in a large circle and just talked about the experiences. So it isn't the first time I've kind of done that, but and it won't be the last. So get yourself along to another one.
I didn't come to that Sunday because I know Mary Rodwell, to me, was a great speaker, but she has a kind of different take on it to what I have. And although I believe that there's good and bad out there interacting with us, my own experiences, there's been nothing good. And all I see from Mary Rodwell is love and light. And it's a bit blinkered, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? It's everything's good. Everything's like can't even remember what she calls them. I don't know. Can't remember. But it's all love and light with Mary Rodwell, isn't it? It's not for me.
Yeah, I personally think, if we are being visited, which I certainly believe we are, I think just like human beings, that we have, we have our good parts and our bad parts. It's going to be exactly the same with whatever it is that's visiting us now. And you've definitely gone through the bad side, Paul. And while we're talking about that, Night People, fantastic publication. You deserve every single credit for bringing that out. Really enjoyed it. And if you haven't got it, folks, then get it. Go to Paul's website, truthproof.uk, I think it is, Paul, and get yourself a copy. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Honestly, appreciate that, because it might be a good time to just say, anybody who wants or is interested in the books, we have a website, truthproof.uk, where you can purchase the paperbacks, and the Kindles are available on Amazon. And Don Lodge puts all information on website for me, which I'm really grateful for. And Night People, I probably, it took a lot of writing, did Night People. And we had, as you might know, Chris, we had Whitley Strieber on a few weeks ago, talking about his experiences and really far out stuff. And when I spoke on Dreamland, because Whitley's read Night People, he said he didn't know anybody that had been affected or interfered with by the visitors, as he calls them, as much as Paul Sinclair, which quite amazed me to hear him say that. Do you know what I mean? Because it was Whitley who said, get your medical records, do this, do that, get as much information as you can. I can't prove anything I'm saying, just like majority of people, but all this is broken record stuff, isn't it? Well, all we can do is just repeat and put it out there in the best way we can. But thanks for them kind words about Night People, and enough of me. We'll move on. And
well, I'm just gonna. It's okay. I'm just gonna pre-warn you. The cat was sat on the window ledge, and I thought she was about to climb over the computer and cut me off. She's gone.
Well, might be a good time. Outer Limits magazine, Chris. Where can people find Outer Limits magazine?
Best thing to do really is look for the official friends of the Outer Limits magazine Facebook page. and just ask to join that. And the next issues, when they're coming out, I post all the information on there. If you want to do a search, it's a long, complicated web address, so it would be better just to look for the official page on Facebook.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a free site, you see, Paul, so I don't want to pay anything for it, so it's a free site.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Chris, I think I put some links in the today's description for you as well.
Thank you.
So, but if you want to check the description later and add anything, I can always add that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll got a couple more questions then, guys. And we touched on this earlier, or you touched on it, Chris. Patricia Adams Wright is asking, Chris, do you believe all the phenomena are linked? But she adds this, and if so, how do you think this happens?
Which particular phenomena? Do you mean UFOs, or do you mean ghosts, or cryptids?
I think knowing fact that she's meaning cryptids, UFOs, ghosts. Do you think they're all linked? It's a difficult question. How?
It is a difficult question, because UFO, unidentified flying object, or UAP, if you want to call it that, it's. Are they coming through a portal? Are they a light effect? Or, like I believe, are they a solid nuts and bolts craft? You've got to find the link between all that before we can actually link it to everything else. I certainly, as we mentioned earlier, I certainly do think when we get UFO reports, we also get cryptid reports, kind of in the same area, over the same or a similar time period. So there could be a link there.
That's the link, Chris. In my opinion, that is the link,
Yeah. And that is about as far as I think about that, to be quite honest.
As for cryptids traveling in UFOs, obviously I have no idea, but me personally, I don't think they are. Yeah, I just think there's something enabling this phenomena to manifest in these time frames.
I mean, if we let's say that the UFO is a nuts and bolts craft, just for the sake of an argument, right? How is something that is 6, 7, 8 foot tall, a big hairy dog, werewolf, if you want to call it that, how the hell is that going to fly a craft if it's a nuts and bolts craft?
Well, I can take. Here I am saying I don't believe it's happening, and I don't, by the way. But there's an extra kind of awareness and intelligence to these things. If we're gonna take what the witnesses are saying as some kind of truth. I mean, they're all telling us that these things perceive our not just our next move, but our thought process before we've begun. You get hunters saying we're just about. I know that doesn't mean they transpose to flying some kind of technical craft, but I'm going to lift my gun up, I'm going to shoot this bloody thing, and then they get a message spoken to them saying, I don't know what the words are, but basically don't do that. It's not a good idea. So there is some inbuilt ability here to preempt what we're going to do and outthink us. So there is that element of intelligence over and above what we've got in some areas. It might just be a natural ability within them. That might be the only ability.
I agree with you, Paul, to a certain extent with that. I mean, take my sighting when I was 14. Look, guys, up in the sky, UFO, and whatever it was must have heard me say that. It in the next logical pattern of its advancement across the sky, it just didn't appear. No clouds, starry night, just didn't appear. Just completely blinked out.
Yeah.
Must have heard me.
Yeah, Les.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Nickname is asking this question: has the conference helped with connections in either of your research? Each of you, I guess.
Well, for me personally, my days of research have long gone. I'm more interested now in getting information out to people. I basically publish a magazine. The days of me doing research finished back in the 1990s, to be quite honest. And having said that, I will read articles when they come in, and to see how factual they sound, how interesting they are. and I will, if I know the person. And let's be honest here. I've had Peter Robbins in the magazine, a new guy by the name of Paul Sinclair. He's been in once or twice, and Malcolm Robinson, Philip Mantle. These are people that I've known for years and years and years. I mean, Paul go back to the late 1990s. So we know each other. I know I can trust the vast majority of people and what they send in. People like Preston Dennett. I'm just starting actually in the June issue a new series of articles called The Grey File, and it's from Earl Grey in the USA, who's a member of MUFON in California. He might be the state director, if I remember correctly.
Right, yeah.
But he has got tons and tons of information that has never gone anywhere. So, I've known Earl for a number of years now on Facebook. And, we discussed this about a year ago, and he was told, no, he couldn't present MUFON information, but that has now changed, and we're going to do that. And, so it's something else for people to look for in the mag.
Yeah, that's really good. For me, the conference, I met so many interesting people coming up wanting to share bits of information. And I'm really hoping, I'm glad that question come up for one reason for myself. It's a bit selfish. Somebody came up and told me they'd got some information about the satanic cult that were operating around, well, I'll just say East Yorkshire. And I said, can we speak about this? And I cannot for the life of me think who told me. I can't even picture the person who told me, because there was people, as you know, as Les knows, there were people talking all day long. It was kind of non-stop. And
yeah.
But what they told me sounded, I don't mean what they were telling me were on the level as in all details of it, but they knew what they were talking about. And I'm intrigued. So if you are listening to this tonight, or you're listening to it afterwards, please get back in touch. I'm interested. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. And I've got a question here. I think this one's for you, Paul. In so much it's got your name at the beginning of the sentence.
Good chance it is.
Good chance it is, yes. Paranormal instigator, who I think I read in the chat earlier, he had to borrow some money to actually get to the conference.
Right.
So I don't know if any other people in the chat want to contribute to pay his loan off. I don't know. That's up to you guys.
Well, thanks.
But there we go.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and Paul, do you get anyone reporting abductions in the area?
Yes, yeah, we do. And I touched on it at conference, and we touched on the fact that people have got incidents of missing time that I kind of used a couple of slides to depict that with some audio of things that had happened to people, particularly on the cliff tops around Bempton and Flamborough. But I'm talking to a couple at the moment, and their words, not mine. They claim that they were abducted by aliens. I'm not going to go into detail about this because I think off air, well, we touched on it briefly. You can talk about some things that are quite, and it's entertainment for people, but it's quite raw to the people who've experienced it. So I've got to know that they're going to be comfortable when I start talking about it. It's a really interesting story, and it's in the zone. It's in the particular area where other things of an highly unusual nature have happened, because within this concentrated area, within this area of strangeness, there's a pocket where a lot of things seem to happen. It didn't become apparent straight away. It probably became more apparent after Bob Brown took this weird photograph on this hillside. And then I thought, hold on a minute. We've had this strange light on this hillside and this strange thing that happened in our home afterwards. We've had the rock angler say he's seen the spaceship land on the top of that hill. We've had myself and Lee Hayward see this huge sphere in this area. So we're looking at a circumference of about 200 yards where all this stuff's happened. I mean, 1998, the rock anglers, as he called it, a spaceship landing on hillside. And how do I know that he's telling the truth? Because I'd already been told about it by the son of another rock angler years before that said his dad saw a spaceship land on hill during a fishing match. And I didn't use that one in any information because it's secondhand. And then I got a first-hand witness telling me the same story, and they all ran off and left the fishing tackle. So where am I going? I know this was about abductions. Yes, in that particular area, I've got stories of missing time, should we say, and there's one where a couple claim that they've been abducted, and their words, by aliens. Let's not forget that when me and Chris Turner did Bringing Down the Light, we had an ex-military guy as well, who were employed not just there, but along the entire eastern North Yorkshire coast by the military to talk to people and look for information. His account is in Bringing Down the Light. He's sat talking about it. We did alter his voice because he didn't want to be exposed. Everybody else has gone on camera, but except this guy, he's on camera, but we've changed his voice and made it so you can't see what's happening. But he claimed that the military knew that they were aliens. I don't mean visiting that, but for somehow being enabled to present in that area. And you'd have to watch Bringing Down the Light to get the lowdown on that. Or, we might even get him on live stream sometime if Les can set it up so that we can have the guy blacked out. I'm sure I could probably get him to talk. Is that possible, Les? You can do that, can't you?
Yes, can do that, Paul. Yeah.
Excellent. Right.
Okay, so I'll move on with another question. Did you ask this question earlier from Al? Was it an update he wanted about Wolflands release?
Yeah, we've kind of
covered that one.
Yeah.
So we went out of order there then. Okay, so Patricia Adams, right, is asking, hi both. Do you think mainstream media are now helping with the cause of lessening ridicule about the subject?
Well, yeah, you
okay.
Go on.
Certain aspects of the media are taking the subject far more seriously. For example, take the New York Times, as I mentioned earlier, and the release of the Pentagon footage in 2017 and so on. They've also added in, I think it was in 2019 again in the New York Times, that the footage was real. The Pentagon agreed it was real, and they didn't know what was behind it. But then you get the tabloids, and then of course we've got the wonderful Daily Star. Now, Sasha spoke at the conference, but Sasha actually made the front page of the Sunday Star about a week before the conference, actually. And as usual, they were just taking the mick. E.T. go home, all the rest of it. So that ridicule is still going on, as we discussed earlier, and what Peter discussed. But I have a contact at the BBC here in Hull, who's a good friend. He interviewed me about a week before the conference. He puts them out on his show, and he's fascinated by the subject. So there are some changes that are occurring, some for good, some not so good, but it is happening. And people, that ridicule is beginning to diminish slowly but surely.
I would agree. I get asked quite well. I won't say a lot, but more often than I used to do for my sort of opinions and contributions, and I won't get involved, not even with local papers, to be honest with you. And I know editor of one at local papers, and I quite like the guy, but it's the backlash that you get after it, from certain individuals within the community who still think it's great to just have a crack at people. And they won't say it to your face. They wouldn't have said it to my face 10 years ago. Let's put it that way. And and that's just the nature of things, isn't it? But we're never going to change it. And plus the fact that then you've got UFO people within the UFO community who want to. They'll do anything just to get the name in paper, and I don't mean people we've just been talking about. I'm on about other people within UFO community, and then just drag all sorts of complete fabrication in just to get their name in paper, and it just brings it down. It makes it a laughing stock. Do you know what I mean? And they're not doing people that they've dragged in who are totally innocent. Celebrities and things. and they're not doing subject any good either. It's just a joke at half at time for some people. They take it serious and they think they're really important within the subject, but they're ridicule, really, you know.
Yeah. Shall we? Can I bring up the elephant in the room?
Yeah. Well, I know where you're going with this. Yeah, go on.
You know where I'm going now, Paul. Yeah. Ben Emlyn Jones was the mysterious man in white that I mentioned earlier on, and now he seems to have a problem in that.
Hold on then, Chris. If you're going to do this, you may as well give us a breakdown of the conference and what happened, because there'll be a lot of people listening to this who'll think, what's he on about?
Right. Okay. But on the Saturday, he turned up, and people, you know, he comes to the conference. He's got a white cricket hat on, dark sunglasses, a face mask, a white shirt, blue tie, and I can't remember what colour his trousers were. I think they were white or something along that line anyway. And he sat there all day long, just watching the conference, behaving himself, being a good lad. And but he keeps getting up and walking around, you know. And the Sunday, he did exactly the same, turned up, walking around, dressed exactly the same. Didn't even have a clean shirt on, as far as I'm aware, but he was there and he was, you know, taking information in. Now, the reason he did that, he claimed he was banned from the conference, or should I say banned from the conference, you know. The guy himself, when I did my first conference in 2017, after my period of being away for about 10 or 15 years, I didn't know Ben Emlyn Jones. I didn't know Sasha Christie or David Young. But at that first conference, David Young and Sasha Christie bought the tickets first. No problem. Okay. Then I found out what was going on with this so-called Larry Warren hate campaign, which was a load of rubbish. It wasn't a hate campaign. You know, David and Sasha were giving out information which was correct, information they'd found out, which, you know, the OLM conference is about the truth, you know, and as far as I'm concerned, they were telling the truth because they had enough information to back up what they were saying. Anyway, when I found out who Ben Emlyn Jones was back in 2017, he also actually asked for a conference ticket. Now, I contacted him.
Let's just break him for a minute. Ben Emlyn Jones, then, and if I see Ben Emlyn Jones in a month's time at conference, I'll speak to him, and I'd have spoke to him that day if I'd have seen him as well. But let's just put it into perspective. He's at the opposite side of Sasha Christie and David Young as regards what's right and what's wrong.
Yes,
because we've got to understand, Chris, that people listening to this a lot of them won't know any of the ins and outs of this.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a problem with Ben, none whatsoever, you know, but he turns up, he's at the conference, doing what he's doing, you know, but he claimed he was banned from this conference. He wasn't banned at all. I've got an invoice, which I know I've shown to you two guys earlier on today, dated the 1st of March, when he sent for a ticket for the conference, a full weekend ticket. I sent him the invoice. He never responded, never paid. But yet on a video that he's recently put out on YouTube, he's claiming he was banned. He's claiming he had to get the ticket surreptitiously, you know, and that he had to go completely disguised. What a complete joke. What a waste of time. You know, he could have just turned up. He could have sat there. Nobody had said anything to him. You know, I wouldn't have kicked him out or anything like that. You know, but I think Ben, please get some help. You've got mental health problems. Please go and get your head sorted out. And that's all I'm going to say on it.
Yeah, well, you've said what you think, and I don't actually think, Chris, if Ben had have come as Ben, you know, if himself, anybody would have said a word. I certainly wouldn't, and I know I would have spoken to him regardless of whether anybody thought I shouldn't have done or I should have done. I would have spoken to the guy. If anything, by acting the way he has done, he's kind of, and if you're listening, Ben, he's kind of gone down in my estimation of him.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because in the end of the day, there were no need to dress like that.
Absolutely.
But it's done. It's done, and whether it were done just for a bit of attention, and then you can just have a little bit of, I don't know, is it limelight? What are we doing here? We're only talking about UFOs. Let's face it. It's not. We know it's an important subject, but in grand scheme of things, we're not breaking any world records, are we? So no. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why the need to get dressed up like that. I'll be quite honest with you. But
yeah, exactly. I completely agree with Paul. Absolutely no need for it. It'd have been made as welcome as everybody else that was there if we'd have known he was sat there. Simple as that. You know, he would have been welcome. That's and that's the end of the story.
Yeah. Let's move on then. Okay. So we've got 10 minutes left. Les, have we any more questions? If we have,
yes, we got a few questions in. Be able to sneak these in. I guess Janice Parry is asking, Canada's ex Minister of Defence Paul Hellyer has clearly stated that aliens are real and known about, and they are amongst us. Have you any thoughts on this, either of you guys?
Well, me personally, and I'll just keep it brief. I think it's a given that I wouldn't be sat here, and I wouldn't have written Night People if I didn't think that there was some reality to this. Alien as in what, though? That's what I would say. I mean, are they traveling from outer space? I've no idea. It's already here. If people can experience these things, somebody will have seen a UFO today somewhere in the world. I don't know where. Somebody might have experienced some kind of poltergeist type phenomena. Somebody might have seen cryptid or experienced some kind of phenomena. It's here, so we don't have to go looking with a telescope that can search for far end of and I'll not swear, but there you go. So I don't know what your views are on it, Chris.
Well, my views is that the term alien is something that is different to the normal. So that term alien could be, as we discussed earlier, they could be coming from underneath the sea. They could be coming from outer space. They could be interdimensional. Who knows? My own opinion is, as I've said, I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I'm a little bit nuts and bolts about the subject. I would love, if Mr. Spock actually existed and he came from planet Vulcan, But at the end of the day, we're dealing with a subject that has been going on for thousands of years, if not millennia, and millennia and millennia, and there is something going on which we need to find an answer to.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I've got a question from, well, not so much a question. In fact, I don't know if to ask it off air, Chris. It's for you, from Al. You might see it in the chat. It's on about security. So I won't read that one out, if you don't mind, Al. Yeah. Michael Adams is asking, when Wolflands is complete, will it be on DVD? We don't know that, Michael, at the moment. We're a little bit way off still. Tim Brennan was in the chat. I don't know if you're still here, Tim, but welcome to the show, what's left of it. We are the only species on the planet to have invented a DIY extinction.
DIY?
So not a question, just a statement.
Just a statement, Tim. Well, I trust Tim to come up with something like that, but yeah, I don't know. You've baffled me, Tim. and just jump into Wolflands.
And if that is correct, Paul, it won't be the first time either.
DIY extinction. Well, I don't like DIY. I'm going to join a betray. But let's jump into Wolflands, Les. I would think that when it does come out, we probably will put it out on DVD as well. I can't imagine that we wouldn't, to be honest with you, because it's a media. If people are asking for it, then yeah, we're doing the same. We're bringing down the light, even though it's gone somewhere else now.
Al has got another question in. Al, yes, yeah, that's it. 10th of February 2018, I saw a white orb at Bempson. I'm confused as to why I saw a white orb where everyone else reports orange. Have you seen a colour other than orange up there, Paul?
Yes.
Chris?
Yeah.
Chris.
And it's interesting that you saw that, and it's been interesting to know where you saw it, Al, because, the rock anglers have been saying for years, they call it the ghost of Big Railings, because each of these bird spotting stands has a name, and there's the Lookout, there's Big Railings, there's Breel Nuke. But particularly around Big Railings, the anglers say that they see the headlight of an angler. They wear these headlights, and while they're fishing in the darkness, and they'll walk down to this angler, There's nobody there. And they've been talking about it for years and years, and they call it the ghost of big railings. It's a white light, and they'll walk down to where they saw it, leave their gear, and when they look up, there's a white light near where they've seen it, near where they've been stood, should I say. So it'd be interesting if it's on the edge of the cliff, Al, and not out at sea. So, and not necessarily of any importance that primarily they're seeing orange lights out at sea, because people have talked about seeing red lights, but I've seen yellow and I've seen orange, mostly orange. But,
can I add something to that, Paul? Because I'm extremely jealous. I mean, how many times have I've been there? What, 2 or 3 times now? Yeah. I've never seen a thing. Yeah. You know, so Al, you're very lucky.
Well, do you know, Chris? Like we said at conference on Saturday, me and Bob Brown can go there for 6 months and see nothing, maybe even a year. And all I said at the conference, and I think I'd stand by this, you could probably go up 100 times and see nothing, or you could go up first time and see something. I just think you have a higher probability there of seeing something than most other places, at least in the UK. And that's why I think it's if you want to visit, don't go with the expectation that you're going to see something, but go with the expectation that there's a higher probability that you might see or experience something there than other places.
Well, that's why, Paul, I'm thinking of coming up there in June or July again.
Yeah.
So let's hope.
Oh, let's hope.
Nickname is asking, do you think dogmen and Bigfoot are the same but are up to the person's interpretation?
I couldn't possibly say. I don't know. Something tells me that they're probably not, but I mean, the gamekeeper, what the gamekeeper described, and the things that he described before he actually saw it, the baby crying in the forest, or the sounds of the baby, all sound Bigfoot related. But he had the feeling that this thing was more dog, as in werewolf stroke dog man. Because, I mean, what we're talking about, people seem to like the word dog man. We've just reinvented werewolf, haven't it? It's another name for it, I think. But that's his gut feeling. I don't know. My feeling is that they're separate. These things are separate, but who can say?
Well, I'm with you on that, Paul. Completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Sebastian Moran is asking, are dogmen / women, werewolves, shapeshifter, are they all alien hybrids?
Once again, Sebastian, I couldn't say. I mean, I know there will be people probably within the chat even who will tell you that they are. I'd just ask them where they've got this proof from. All I know is that I'm collecting these accounts and just laying them out best way I can. So the person that stands up and says, yeah, they're alien hybrids, show me the proof.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree with that as well. You know, it's a $6 million question, and any answer we give could be pure speculation.
Okay, Mark McClinchy is asking, are there any recent UFO sightings in Yorkshire?
Not as far as I'm aware. I haven't got anything.
We've had a few reports come in, but nothing so significant. And I see that I can see in the chat it says baby rabbits sound like human babies, and so do hedgehogs when they're being attacked by a stoat or a weasel. But what I would say to that is we've got gamekeepers know. I'm not saying emphatically that they'll know the difference, but they kind of know the difference. And after he'd seen this sphere of light shoot up at the side of him, the very next day all this weirdness began. You know what I mean? But yeah, good point. And I put the hedgehog one to gamekeeper. Actually, I just said to him, when they're being attacked, they do sound a bit like infants crying. But there you go. We're just about there, Les, aren't we?
Yeah, we're just about there. And I've got to say, looking on the chat, we've been hit by some spam.
Oh yeah, see Tinder.
Paul.
Yeah. Well, there's not.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to get that site blocked for the future. So, but thanks, Debbie, for keeping an eye on that and getting rid of as much as you can. Obviously, they're coming in by the thousands now.
Well, it'll be somebody just doing us a favour, won't it? Due to probably being upset about what maybe has been said in some aspects tonight. But yeah, Good try.
Yeah, it's just bots. It's just bots what hit sites, Paul, and live streams and the like. So fair enough. And I've got to say, thank you, Chris Evers tonight, and I've got to thank you, Paul Sinclair. Obviously, I try and do my best setting this thing up, but there's no show without you guys.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a pleasure to speak to you both, and I'll see you fairly soon, no doubt.
You will, Chris. Take care. Great to speak to you, and thank you very much. Thank you, Les. And on that note, I'm going. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, there you go. Another great show tonight. Thanks for the super chat. I think there was Lee. If there's anybody I left out, I'm sorry about that. But thanks for everybody who came into the stream tonight on the chat and gave us some great questions. Thanks to Debbie for doing the moderating. And I've got to say, thanks to everybody I met at the show. I was only there on Saturday at the OLM Conference, but everybody who I met, it was a great, and I felt as if I'd had an out-of-body experience. Now, that phrase will mean something to somebody on here, but I'll leave it at that. I've got to say, we're going to see you next week. I think we've got a stream on next week. Got a great guest from America who's due to be with us. So on that note, I will say good night.